In a city where wealth buys everything, a billionaire chose to hide behind a tray of drinks, but he didn't expect to meet the one person who would change everything. The golden glow of chandeliers bathed Orlaya, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, in an air of untouchable luxury. Waiters glided between tables like shadows, carrying trays of champagne and caviar as if they weighed nothing. The scent of truffle oil and seared steak mingled with the hushed murmur of powerful voices. To the patrons, it was a cathedral of excess. To Emily Carter, it was just another exhausting night on the job. At 23, Emily had perfected the art of smiling without letting anyone see her fatigue. Her black uniform was neatly pressed, her hair pulled into a tight bun. She moved quickly, quietly, balancing 3 plates at once while ignoring the throb in her feet. Rent was late again. Her younger brother's tuition bill waited at home on the kitchen counter, a silent reminder of how much she carried alone. Emily adjusted a tray on her shoulder, weaving past a couple arguing in French when she noticed him. Tall, broad-shouldered, and slightly out of sync with the staff's rhythm, a new waiter slipped through the kitchen doors. His black vest looked too crisp, too new. His hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. And the way he glanced at the room, not like a server but like a man surveying a kingdom, immediately caught her attention. Then he nearly dropped an entire tray of serverware. Emily darted forward, catching it before it crashed onto the polished floor. The noise of the dining room masked the near disaster, but she fixed him with a sharp look. Careful, she muttered under her breath, setting the tray down. Her voice was soft enough to avoid notice, firm enough to sting. The man gave a sheepish smile, scratching the back of his neck. Yeah. Not exactly my best first impression. Emily raised a brow. You've never done this before, have you? He smirked, a flash of something playful in his eyes. Is it that obvious? She rolled her eyes, stifling a laugh. Don't worry, I've seen worse. The night moved on, but she kept an eye on him. He was clumsy with trays, confused about table numbers, and overly polite to guests who didn't care enough to look at him. He should have been a burden to her already overloaded shift, yet strangely she didn't mind. There was something disarming about him. Unlike the other rookies who grumbled or barked questions, he listened. He watched. He tried. It wasn't until a particularly difficult customer waved Emily over that she saw the man's true colors. The guest, a Wall Street banker with a loud tie and louder voice, snapped his fingers and shoved a glass of red wine toward her. This is too warm, he sneered. Fix it and don't take all night. Emily's stomach tightened. She opened her mouth to respond, but the new waiter stepped forward. I'll take care of this, sir, he said smoothly, lifting the glass without hesitation. There was no flinch, no resentment in his tone, just calm authority. The banker blinked, surprised, then grunted in satisfaction and turned away. Emily stared for a second before whispering as they walked back toward the service station, You don't really act like a waiter. He glanced sideways at her, eyes sharp yet unreadable. And what do I act like? She hesitated. There was something about the way he carried himself, steady, confident, as if nothing in this room could rattle him. Finally, she shook her head, like someone who doesn't belong here. For the briefest moment his smirk faltered. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice. Maybe I don't. Before Emily could question what that meant, the manager barked her name from across the dining room. She returned to her duties, but the thought lingered. Who was this man, really? By the end of the shift, her body ached in familiar ways. She stepped out into the frigid Manhattan night, pulling her worn coat tight around her. The city hummed, car horns, neon lights, the distant rumble of the subway beneath her feet. She exhaled, watching her breath cloud in the air. Behind her, the restaurant doors swung open. The new waiter walked out, his vest unbuttoned, his smile tired but genuine. Rough first day, Emily asked, raising an eyebrow. He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. I'll get better. Thanks for not letting me drown back there. She shrugged, pretending it didn't matter, though a small warmth stirred in her chest. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow's even harder. They stood for a moment in the quiet hum of the city. Two coworkers sharing nothing more than fatigue and the faint spark of something unspoken. Then Emily waved a quick goodbye, heading toward the subway. The man watched her go, his expression thoughtful. Moments later, a sleek black town car pulled up to the curb. He glanced around to make sure no one saw before sliding inside. The driver shut the door with a quiet thud, and the car disappeared into the night. Ryan Donovan, billionaire tech mogul, leaned back against the leather seat, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "She's not like the others," he murmured to himself. Emily, walking down the steps to the subway, couldn't shake the same thought. Who exactly is Ryan Donovan? Sometimes attraction isn't born out of candlelit dinners or whispered promises. Sometimes it grows between trays of dirty dishes and exhausted smiles. The following night at Orlea carried the same air of luxury. Golden chandeliers, expensive laughter, the scent of money so thick it felt suffocating. But for Emily Carter, it was just another long shift. She tied her apron, tucked her notepad into her pocket, and braced herself for the endless parade of demands. She didn't expect to see him again. Ryan Donovan, though she only knew him as the clumsy new waiter, was already in uniform, fumbling with a tray of water glasses near the bar. He caught her staring and offered a crooked smile. "Don't worry," he said, carefully balancing the tray. "I practiced at home today, didn't drop a single fork." Emily couldn't help but laugh, shaking her head. "Yeah, let's see if that streak lasts more than an hour." His grin widened. "Is that a challenge?" "Call it realistic expectations." Despite herself, Emily felt lighter. She was used to new hires who complained or quit within a week. Ryan, however, seemed determined to survive, even if survival meant making a fool of himself. Something about that determination, mixed with his easy humor, chipped away at the walls she usually kept so firmly in place. The night was busy. A hedge fund manager ordered 3 courses like he was commanding an army. A couple argued over whether the chef's tasting menu was pretentious or genius. Emily moved through it all with mechanical precision. Ryan trailed behind, watching, learning, sometimes stumbling, but always trying. At one point, Emily carried a heavy tray stacked with wine bottles toward table 9. Her grip slipped for a second, the bottles wobbling dangerously. Before disaster could strike, Ryan was there, steadying the tray with surprising speed. "Got it," he murmured. Emily exhaled sharply, relieved. Not bad for a rookie. He winked. "Guess I'm improving." For the first time in a long while, Emily felt seen, not as a faceless server, not as background noise, but as someone who mattered. The sensation startled her. Later that evening, a new challenge arrived in the form of Table 7. 4 men in tailored suits, their laughter sharp as broken glass. Emily hated serving them. They treated waitstaff like furniture, always snapping fingers, never saying thank you. Tonight was no different. "Miss," one of them barked, waving his empty glass. "Another bottle and her." Emily plastered on her professional smile, but her stomach twisted. She turned to fetch the wine when Ryan suddenly stepped in. "Right away, sir," he said smoothly, lifting the glass. "We'll make sure it's chilled to perfection." The man grunted approval, already forgetting them. Emily shot Ryan a look as they walked away. "You didn't have to do that." Ryan shrugged. "Why should you take all the heat? I can handle a little arrogance." She studied him for a moment. "You really don't act like the others." He raised a brow, still convinced I don't belong here. "More than ever," she said, but this time her tone was softer. Less suspicion, more curiosity. As the hours dragged on, the two fell into an unspoken rhythm. He carried plates while she took orders. He fetched wine while she cleared tables. They shared quick glances, quiet laughs, tiny victories when they managed to dodge the chaos of the night. By the time the final dessert was served, it almost felt like they had been working together for years. After closing, the staff gathered in the back room, counting tips and grumbling about rude customers. Emily leaned against the counter, rubbing her sore feet, when Ryan approached with 2 paper cups of coffee from the staff machine. "Here," he said, handing her one. "Not exactly Orlai's finest, but it'll keep you awake." She smirked, accepting it. Thanks, you survived another night." "Barely. Pretty sure I mixed up table numbers 3 times. 4, Emily corrected, sipping her coffee. "But who's counting?" Ryan chuckled, then grew quiet. He studied her, his expression thoughtful. "You work harder than anyone I've ever met." The sincerity in his voice made Emily shift uncomfortably. Compliments from customers were easy to brush off, but this, from someone standing beside her, sharing the grind, it landed differently. "I don't really have a choice," she said finally, her tone guarded. "Bills don't pay themselves." Ryan wanted to ask more, but he stopped himself. He wasn't ready to reveal who he was, not yet, and pressing too much might push her away. Instead, he smiled gently. "Well, if you ever need someone to carry trays for you, I'm your guy. Might drop half of them, but my heart's in the right place." Emily laughed, the sound genuine this time. For the first time in months, she didn't feel so alone. When she finally stepped into the cold night, Emily pulled her coat tighter and walked toward the subway. Ryan lingered by the door, watching her disappear into the city's glow. Something in his chest tightened, a feeling he hadn't expected, hadn't planned for. Inside the waiting town car parked discreetly around the corner, Ryan leaned back, lost in thought. The disguise was supposed to be simple: observe, understand, maybe regain a little faith in humanity. Instead, he found himself drawn to a woman who had no idea who he really was. For Emily, descending into the subway, her mind replayed the night. His crooked smile, the way he defended her, the coffee he handed her when she needed it most. She shook her head, trying to dismiss it. He was just a coworker, nothing more. And yet a question lingered in both their minds as the city swallowed them up. What happens when a spark refuses to be ignored? In every story of love, there's always someone who sees it as a threat. And in the world of the rich, threats are not ignored, they are crushed. The weekend at Orlai was chaos. Reservation lists stretched for pages, the dining room filled with a constant hum of laughter, arguments, and deals sealed over vintage Bordeaux. Emily Carter tied her apron tighter, bracing herself. Exhaustion was nothing new, but something about tonight felt heavier, like the air itself carried tension. Ryan was already inside, adjusting his too-crisp vest, that same awkward but charming smile tugging at his lips when he caught her eye. "Ready for round 3?" he asked. Emily smirked. "I'll believe you're ready when you stop confusing table numbers." He grinned, shrugging. "Progress, not perfection." Emily shook her head, but a warmth crept into her chest. Against her better judgment, she was starting to look forward to seeing him each night. Tonight's guest list was packed with regulars, the wealthy, the powerful, the entitled. But one name stood out: Victoria Hale, daughter of one of the city's most influential real estate dynasties, known for her sharp heels, sharper tongue, and a smile that rarely meant anything kind. When she arrived, the room seemed to bend around her presence. She swept in wearing a crimson designer dress, diamonds flashing at her ears, her heels clicking like a metronome of control. Heads turned, conversations paused. Victoria Hale was used to being the center of gravity. Ryan, balancing a tray of wine glasses, froze for just a fraction of a second when he saw her. He knew her. They had crossed paths at galas, charity auctions, boardrooms. She had always been ambitious, too ambitious, and she had always been clear about one thing: she wanted him. "Table 5, the manager whispered, flustered, guiding her to a prime spot near the windows. Emily noticed Ryan stiffen, but before she could ask, he forced a smile and disappeared into the kitchen. Victoria scanned the room like a queen surveying her court. When her gaze landed on Ryan, her eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat, confusion flickered. What was he doing here in a waiter's vest? Then came recognition, and with it, amusement. Her lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. She waited until Emily approached her table with menus. "Good evening, Miss Hale," Emily said politely, setting the menus down. Victoria tilted her head, studying Emily with the kind of precision usually reserved for luxury goods. "And you are?" "Emily, I'll be your server tonight." Victoria's eyes lingered sharp and assessing. "Lovely," she murmured. Then, as if it were an afterthought, she added, Tell me, Emily, how long have you been working here?" "A little over a year," Emily replied, unsure why it mattered. Victoria's smile was sweet, too sweet, long enough to know who's worth serving, I imagine. Emily kept her professional mask in place, though something about Victoria's tone sent a shiver through her. Later, when Ryan passed by with a tray, Victoria's hand shot out, brushing against his arm. "Ryan Donovan," she whispered, low enough for only him to hear. "Playing dress-up, are we?" He froze. "Keep your voice down." Victoria's smile widened. "Relax. Your secret's safe with me for now." Her gaze slid toward Emily, who was busy arranging plates across the room. "But tell me, does she know who you really are?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "Stay out of it, Victoria." "Oh, darling," she purred, leaning closer. "But it's so much more fun when I don't." As the evening wore on, Victoria's game became clear. She asked for Emily specifically whenever she needed something. A different wine, a special request for the chef, extra napkins. Always polite on the surface, but each request was tinged with subtle condescension. At one point, she accidentally dropped her silk scarf on the floor. When Emily bent to pick it up, Victoria murmured just loud enough for her to hear, "Careful, dear, don't scuff it. It costs more than your entire month's salary." Emily froze, cheeks burning, but forced a tight smile. "Of course, ma'am." Ryan, watching from across the room, clenched his fists. But revealing his connection to Victoria would expose his secret too soon. After the dinner rush, Emily slipped into the break room, her hands trembling as she poured herself a glass of water. Maggie, her coworker, frowned. "What's wrong?" Emily shook her head. "Table 5, Victoria Hale, she's something else." Maggie grimaced. "Say no more. She eats people alive for breakfast. Don't let her get to you." Emily tried to laugh it off, but the sting lingered. She hated feeling small, invisible, less than. Meanwhile, Victoria cornered Ryan near the kitchen doors. "So this is your grand experiment, pretending to be one of them." She gestured at the staff bustling by. "How quaint." Ryan glared. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," she replied, her eyes gleaming. "You're running from the vultures, looking for someone real, aren't you? How adorable. But let me warn you, Ryan. Girls like her," she nodded toward the break room door where Emily had just disappeared. "They're only ever after one thing. Don't fool yourself into thinking she's different." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You don't know her." Victoria smirked. "We'll see." By the time Emily left that night, she was drained, her confidence chipped by Victoria's subtle cruelty. Outside, the winter wind cut through her coat. She hugged herself, wishing for once that life didn't feel like an uphill climb. Ryan watched from the shadows torn. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her she was worth more than Victoria's venom. But every word he spoke risked exposing the truth. And Victoria, she wasn't done. She had seen the way Ryan looked at Emily, the softening in his eyes, the rare warmth in his smile. And Victoria Hale never tolerated competition. Some battles aren't fought in boardrooms or behind velvet ropes. Some are fought alone in small apartments, with nothing but hope holding the walls together. The hum of Manhattan faded as Emily Carter stepped off the subway in Queens, climbing the cracked concrete steps to her building. The night shift at Orlia had left her body aching, her smile worn thin. She dug her keys from her bag and pushed open the heavy door to the small two-bedroom apartment she shared with her younger brother, Daniel. "Hey, Daniel greeted from the couch, textbooks spread around him. His dark hair was messy, his eyes tired from hours of studying. A pot of boxed macaroni and cheese sat on the table, steam long since gone. "You didn't have to wait up," Emily said softly, dropping her bag with a sigh. He shrugged. Didn't feel right eating without you. Her chest tightened. She smiled anyway, grabbing a plate. Thanks, kid. They ate quietly, the kind of silence that came not from distance, but from weariness. After a few bites, Daniel spoke. Tosin's due next week. Emily froze. She had been dreading this. I know, she said. Daniel frowned. You're already working 2 shifts a day. You can't keep this up forever. I'll figure it out, she insisted, forcing a smile she didn't feel. That's my job. Daniel's voice softened. It's not just your job, Em, you're 23. You should have your own life, your own dreams. She looked at him, her throat tightening. Dreams. She used to have them, bright, vibrant visions of becoming a designer, of creating spaces that felt alive. But dreams didn't pay rent. Dreams didn't buy textbooks, so she buried them deep beneath the weight of survival. The next night at Orlia, Ryan noticed the shadows under Emily's eyes, the way her shoulders sagged between orders. She moved with her usual grace, but he could see the cracks in the mask. During a lull, he leaned against the service counter beside her. Long day. Emily gave a humorless laugh. Aren't they all? Fair point, he said, but this feels different. You look tired. She arched a brow. You trying to say I look bad? Ryan shook his head quickly, flustered. No, I just mean. Emily laughed, a real laugh this time, short but warm. Relax, I'm messing with you. Still, her smile faded as quickly as it came. She rubbed her temples. Honestly, it's just life, rent, bills, my brother's tuition, it never ends. Ryan wanted to tell her he could fix it all with a single phone call. That one check from him could erase her worries, but he bit his tongue. That wasn't why he was here. He wanted her to see him, not his money. So instead he asked softly, what about you? What do you want? Emily blinked at him, caught off guard. No one ever asked her that, not the customers who barely glanced at her name tag, not the managers who only cared about efficiency, not even Daniel, though she didn't blame him. What do I want? She repeated almost to herself. She hesitated, then whispered, I wanted to be an interior designer. I used to sketch rooms, colors, furniture layouts, everything. But that feels like another lifetime. Ryan's voice was gentle. Why another lifetime? Because some people get to chase dreams, Emily said bitterly, and some people just try to make it to the end of the month. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He'd spent years surrounded by people who had everything, who wasted opportunities without thought. And here was Emily, talented, hardworking, drowning under circumstances she didn't create. It made his chest ache in a way that no business deal ever had. Later that night, as they cleared the last table, Emily dropped a glass. It shattered across the floor, sharp fragments scattering under the glow of chandeliers. She froze, her hands trembling. The manager snapped, Emily, be careful. That glass costs more than your paycheck. Her cheeks flushed hot. She knelt quickly, fumbling to gather the shards. Before she could cut herself, Ryan crouched beside her, his hand steady on hers. Hey, he said softly, it's just a glass, nothing more. She looked at him, eyes wide, the weight of exhaustion threatening to spill over. For a moment she thought she might cry, but she swallowed it down, forcing a nod. Ryan wanted to say more, to tell her she wasn't alone, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he gathered the broken pieces with her, silently sharing the burden. When the shift finally ended, Emily stepped outside into the freezing night. The city lights blurred through unshed tears. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold the pieces together. Ryan watched from the doorway, his chest tight. He had seen countless people break in boardrooms, watched rivals crumble under pressure. But Emily's quiet strength, her refusal to fall apart, humbled him more than any victory ever had. She didn't know it, but she was already changing him. Back in Queens, Emily slipped into her apartment quietly, not wanting to wake Daniel. She set her bag down and pulled out her worn sketchbook. The pages were filled with designs she had long since abandoned, living rooms painted in warm tones, bedrooms lined with bookshelves, kitchens bathed in light. She traced the lines with her fingertips, a bittersweet smile tugging at her lips, a bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. For a few minutes she allowed herself to imagine, to dream again. Then she closed the book, tucking it back under her bed, and turned off the light. Across town in his penthouse overlooking the city, Ryan sat alone. He should have been reviewing contracts, calling partners, planning his next move. But all he could think about was Emily, the way she carried so much with so little, the flicker of hope in her voice when she spoke of design. He poured himself a drink, staring at the skyline. For the first time in years, he questioned whether all his wealth, all his power, meant anything at all compared to the resilience of one waitress in a cheap uniform. Sometimes the sweetest nights hide the sharpest traps. Just when hearts begin to open, shadows slip in to tear them apart. The next week at Orly blurred into a whirlwind of long shifts and endless customers. But for Emily, something had changed. She caught herself glancing toward Ryan more often, laughing at his clumsy jokes, feeling lighter when he was near. It wasn't supposed to matter. He was just a coworker, a rookie at that. Yet somehow the nights felt less heavy with him around. Ryan felt it too. He had told himself to keep distance, to maintain his cover, to focus on observing. But Emily had slipped past his defenses. Every time she smiled, every time she fought through exhaustion with quiet resilience, he felt drawn closer. On a rare evening off, Emily was surprised when Ryan appeared outside the subway station near her apartment, hands stuffed into his coat pockets. "You stalking me now?" she teased, though her cheeks flushed at the sight of him. Ryan chuckled. "No, I just figured you could use a break. Want to grab a coffee. Nothing fancy." She hesitated. Her instinct was to say no, she couldn't afford distractions. But something in his eyes, earnest and unguarded, made her nod. They ended up at a tiny cafe tucked between a laundromat and a deli. The place smelled like cinnamon and espresso, the kind of warm, unpretentious space Emily loved. They sat in a corner booth, hands curled around steaming mugs. For once, Emily wasn't serving. She wasn't invisible. She was just herself. Ryan leaned forward, his voice low. "So tell me more about this design dream of yours. What's the first space you'd create if money wasn't an issue?" Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. "That's easy. A library, cozy, full of light with shelves that reach the ceiling. A place people could escape to, even if just for a little while." Ryan smiled. "Sounds incredible. I'd go there." She gave him a look. "Really, you don't strike me as the bookish type." He smirked. "Don't underestimate me. I've been known to get lost in a story or two." For the first time in years, Emily felt safe enough to share her dreams. And Ryan, listening intently, realized just how rare it was for someone to speak to him without calculating what they could gain. She didn't know his bank account, his power, his name. She just saw him, and that terrified and exhilarated him in equal measure. Back at Orly the following night, Emily carried a glow she couldn't hide. Maggie noticed immediately, elbowing her playfully in the break room. "What's with the smile?" Maggie teased. "Don't tell me our rookie's growing on you." Emily rolled her eyes. "He's different, that's all." Maggie grinned knowingly. Different usually means trouble. Emily laughed, but the words stuck with her. Meanwhile, Victoria Hale was watching. She had seen Emily and Ryan laughing together, noticed the softening in Ryan's gaze. Rage simmered beneath her perfect smile. How dare a waitress steal the attention that should belong to her? Victoria moved quickly. That night, she summoned Emily to her table with a wave of manicured fingers. "Emily, darling," she said smoothly, her voice dripping with false warmth, "would you mind helping me with something?" Emily forced a polite smile. "Of course, Miss Hale." Victoria's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I'm attending a charity gala tomorrow evening. I have a gown, but I need a second opinion. You seem tasteful enough. Perhaps you'd join me at the boutique for a quick fitting." Emily blinked, caught off guard. No guest had ever asked her something so personal. Her instinct screamed trap, but Victoria's tone left no room for refusal. "I sure," Emily stammered, "if the manager approves." "Already arranged," Victoria said smoothly. "Tomorrow at noon, don't be late." The next day, Emily found herself in a high-end boutique that smelled of perfume and polished marble. Dresses draped in silk and sequins lined the walls, each worth more than her monthly rent. Victoria swept through the racks like royalty, pulling gowns, dismissing others, while Emily trailed awkwardly behind. At one point, Victoria handed Emily a deep blue dress. "Try it on, humor me." Emily's cheeks flushed. "Oh, I couldn't." "Nonsense," Victoria interrupted, "just for fun." Against her better judgment, Emily slipped into the fitting room. The gown hugged her figure perfectly, its shimmer catching the light. When she stepped out, Victoria clapped her hands together, her smile deceptively bright. "Beautiful," she said sweetly. "Ryan will love it." Emily froze. "Ryan?" Victoria tilted her head. "Oh, darling, don't look so shocked. Men like him always need a distraction, but trust me, it never lasts." Emily's stomach twisted. Something about the way Victoria said it made her feel exposed, foolish. She quickly retreated into the fitting room, desperate to change back. Victoria, smirking to herself, snapped a quick photo on her phone of Emily in the gown. Perfect ammunition for later. That night, Ryan noticed Emily was quieter, her usual spark dimmed. He asked gently, "Everything okay?" She forced a smile, "Just tired." But when she walked away, Ryan's gut told him something was wrong. He didn't know what Victoria had done, but he knew her games, and he knew she had set her sights on Emily. For Emily, the sweetness of her stolen moment with Ryan was already curdling into doubt. Was she just another joke, another poor girl foolish enough to believe she mattered to someone out of her league? And in the shadows, Victoria Hale prepared her next move, her trap tightening. Trust is fragile. It doesn't shatter with a crash. It splinters quietly, piece by piece, until one day it's gone. Emily Carter moved through Orly that night with a heavy heart. The memory of Victoria's words still echoed in her head. Men like him always need a distraction, but trust me, it never lasts. Emily hated that the poison had seeped in, but it had. She couldn't shake it. Ryan noticed immediately. The sparkle in her eyes was dulled, her smile thin, her laughter absent. She answered his jokes with distracted nods, her mind clearly elsewhere. "You okay?" he asked softly as they passed each other near the kitchen doors. "Fine," she replied quickly, avoiding his gaze. But he didn't believe her, not for a second. Halfway through the night, Ryan slipped into the staff hallway to take a call. He thought he was alone, but Emily happened to be passing by, carrying a tray of dishes. She paused when she heard his voice. "Yes, the deal's secure," Ryan said firmly. "No, they can't move without my signature. Tell the board I'll handle it." Emily froze. The board? What board? No waiter talked like that. The tone in his voice wasn't nervous or subordinate. It was commanding, authoritative, powerful. She quickly backed away before he saw her, but her thoughts spun. Who exactly was Ryan, and why was he pretending to be one of them? Later, as they folded napkins in the break room, Emily tried to probe gently. "So what did you do before this job?" she asked, keeping her tone casual. Ryan hesitated, a little bit of everything. "Like what?" she pressed. "Travel, consulting, some investments," he said vaguely, eyes avoiding hers. Emily frowned. "That's specific." Ryan forced a smile. "I've lived a strange life." Emily studied him, suspicion creeping in. His hands weren't calloused like the others, his posture too straight, his words too polished. He didn't belong here. She had been right all along. That night, after the last guest left, Emily grabbed her coat quickly, wanting to escape before Ryan could corner her. But he caught up to her outside. "Emily, wait," he said, breath misting in the cold air. She turned, arms crossed. "What is it?" His eyes searched hers. "You've been different. Did I do something?" She hesitated. Every instinct screamed to tell him the truth, that she didn't trust him, that she feared he was hiding something. But vulnerability was dangerous, and she had been burned before. "You didn't do anything," she lied. "I'm just tired." Ryan didn't push. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small chocolate bar. "For you. Thought you might need it." Emily blinked. It was such a simple gesture, but it made her throat tighten. She took it slowly, whispering, "Thanks." Yet as she walked away, she couldn't. Victoria Hale was not idle. She spread whispers among the staff, little seeds of suspicion. "Funny how the new guy always has money for car service," she murmured to a bartender. "And that watch he wears, limited edition, costs more than a year's salary." By the end of the week, the rumors had spread. Some staff began to eye Ryan differently, whispers following him through the kitchen. Emily overheard fragments. "Rich kid playing servant, must be hiding something, probably slumming for thrills." She hated gossip, but when she saw the sleek black town car waiting discreetly near the corner after every shift, her stomach twisted. She wanted to believe in him. She wanted to believe in the spark they shared, but every piece of evidence pointed toward deception. One night after a particularly brutal shift, Ryan found Emily sitting alone on a bench near the staff entrance, her shoulders slumped. "Rough night?" he asked gently, sitting beside her. She gave a short laugh. "When isn't it?" They sat in silence for a moment, the city buzzing faintly in the background. Then Ryan spoke. "Emily, you can trust me." The words made her heart ache. She wanted to believe him, wanted it more than she dared admit, but trust was fragile, and hers had been broken too many times. "Can I?" she whispered almost to herself. Ryan's chest tightened. He longed to tell her everything, to rip off the mask and reveal who he truly was. But the fear held him back, fear that she'd see only the billionaire, not the man. So he stayed silent, and silence, Emily thought bitterly, was its own kind of answer. That night back at her small apartment, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Daniel slept soundly in the next room, his future resting on her exhausted shoulders, and she wondered, was Ryan just another dream she couldn't afford to have? Across town, Ryan stood on his penthouse balcony, the city glittering beneath him. He clenched the railing, frustration burning through him. He had built empires, faced down rivals, negotiated billion-dollar deals, yet here he was, terrified of losing one woman's trust. For the first time, Ryan Donovan realized money couldn't buy what he wanted most. Masks don't fall gently. They shatter, exposing everything beneath, and once the truth is out, nothing can ever be the same. The night of the winter gala at Orlaya arrived like a storm. The restaurant had been transformed into a glittering palace, crystal chandeliers polished to perfection, velvet curtains drawn back to reveal the Manhattan skyline, and tables lined with gold-rimmed plates and champagne towers that sparkled like diamonds. This was no ordinary dinner service. This was an event where the wealthiest of New York came not just to eat, but to parade their power. Emily Carter adjusted her uniform nervously. She hated nights like this, where the staff became invisible shadows scurrying between tables while the rich basked in their own reflections. Tonight, however, felt different. The weight in her chest hadn't lifted since that conversation with Ryan in the alley. His secrets pressed against her thoughts, making every word between them feel fragile. Ryan, dressed in his usual waiter's vest, scanned the room. He shouldn't have come tonight. Too many eyes, too many chances for someone to recognize him. But he couldn't stay away, not when Emily was here. Not when Victoria Hale was lurking like a predator, waiting for her moment. And Victoria had chosen tonight to strike. The gala began with speeches. A hedge fund magnate droned about charity while servers refilled glasses. Emily moved gracefully between tables, but her eyes kept drifting toward Lyon. He carried trays with practiced ease now, but his posture, his gaze, it all screamed of someone who didn't belong. Then it happened. A late arrival swept into the room, a senator with cameras flashing at his heels. Journalists followed, snapping photos of every detail: the guests, the food, the staff. One lens caught Ryan as he crossed the floor with a tray of champagne. "Ryan Donovan," a reporter blurted, disbelief flooding his voice. The room froze, heads turned, whispers rippled through the air. Ryan stiffened, too late to run. "Yes, it's him," another voice gasped. "That's Donovan, the tech billionaire." Gasps erupted, guests craned their necks to see. Phones lifted, cameras clicked. Within seconds, the secret was gone. Emily froze in place, her tray trembling in her hands. What? The name echoed in her mind. Ryan Donovan. Of course she'd heard it before. Who in New York hadn't? A billionaire, a mogul, the kind of man who appeared on magazine covers and finance networks. And he had been here beside her all along. Her chest tightened beside her all along. Her chest tightened, air catching in her throat. He lied to me. Victoria rose gracefully from her table, her crimson dress glinting under the chandelier. She clapped slowly, a smirk curling her lips. "Well, well," she purred, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. "The great Ryan Donovan playing dress-up as a waiter. How entertaining." Laughter bubbled from some guests, sharp and cruel. Others whispered frantically, piecing together what this meant. And all the while, Emily stood rooted to the spot, her heart shattering. Ryan's eyes found hers across the room. She looked at him as though she didn't know him at all, because she didn't, not really. He opened his mouth, desperate to explain. "Emily." But Victoria's voice sliced through the air. "And here I thought you were just slumming it for amusement. But no, you've been cozying up to the help, haven't you?" Her eyes glittered with malicious delight. "Tell me, Ryan, was she just another experiment, another poor soul fooled into thinking you were one of them?" All eyes turned to Emily. The sting of humiliation burned her cheeks. The whispers were knives, cutting deep. Gold digger. How pathetic. She actually believed him. Emily's vision blurred with unshed tears. She slammed her tray onto the counter and pushed through the crowd, ignoring Ryan's voice calling her name. She burst through the doors into the freezing night, gasping for air. Snowflakes drifted down, settling in her hair, melting on her hot skin. The city buzzed around her, but all she could hear was the echo of his lie. Footsteps pounded behind her. "Emily, wait." She spun around, tears streaking her face. "Don't do you dare." "Please let me explain," Ryan begged, his voice raw. "I never meant to hurt you." "You lied to me," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Every smile, every word, it was all a game to you, wasn't it? Do you know how stupid I feel?" Ryan's chest ached. "No, Emily, it wasn't a game. Everything I felt for you, it's real. I didn't know how to tell you." Her laugh was bitter, jagged. "You didn't know how, or you didn't think I was worth the truth." He reached for her, but she stepped back, shaking her head. "Stay away from me." And with that, she turned and disappeared into the snow, leaving Ryan standing in the cold, his mask shattered, his heart in pieces. Inside, Victoria basked in her triumph. She sipped her wine, eyes glinting as she watched the fallout unfold. For her, this was just the beginning. For Emily, it was the end of the fragile hope she had dared to believe in. And for Ryan Donovan, it was the moment he realized he had lost the only person who ever truly saw him. Not the billionaire, not the mogul, but the man beneath. Trust doesn't just vanish, it's torn apart, leaving behind ruins too heavy to rebuild. And when the world turns its back, even the strongest hearts can break. The morning after the gala, Emily Carter sat on the edge of her bed, numb. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the nightstand, messages, calls, notifications flooding in. She didn't need to check them to know what they said. She had seen the headlines plastered across social media, splashed on every news site. Billionaire Ryan Donovan exposed at gala, waitress girlfriend caught in the middle. Her name was trending, not in the way anyone dreamed of, but as the punchline to a cruel joke. Gold digger, fraud, social climber. Each word was a blade. Daniel shuffled out of his room, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Em, what's going on? Everyone at school is talking about you. She cut him off, her voice shaking. Don't, please, Ka. Daniel's face softened, guilt shadowing his features. He wanted to protect her, but he was just a kid. Emily was the one holding everything together, and now it felt like everything had slipped through her fingers. When Emily arrived at Orlia that evening, she knew before stepping inside. The way the manager glared at her, the way the whispers fell silent the second she walked through the door, it was already over. Emily, the manager said curtly, pulling her aside, we can't have this kind of attention on the restaurant, you understand. Her throat tightened. Please, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't even know who he really was. That's not the point, the manager snapped. The Hill family has been calling nonstop, threatening to pull business. We can't risk it. Her heart dropped. So that's it, I'm fired. He sighed, avoiding her eyes. Turn in your uniform, the words crashing down. This job had been her lifeline, rent, bills, Daniel's tuition. Without it, she had nothing. She walked out with her head held high, but the moment she stepped into the alley, tears streamed down her cheeks. Her uniform, folded neatly in her arms, felt like a coffin for her dignity. Ryan tried to call. Again and again her phone lit up with his name. She refused everyone. Finally, he showed up outside her apartment. Emily opened the door just enough to glare at him. Emily, please, he begged, let me explain. You don't get to explain, she snapped. You lied to me from the very beginning. Do you know what they're saying about me, about my family? Do you know I lost my job today? Ryan's jaw clenched. I never wanted this for you. I'll fix it. Fix it? Emily's laugh was hollow. You can't fix me being humiliated in front of the whole city. You can't fix my name being dragged through the mud. Money doesn't erase this. Emily, everything I felt for you was real, he said desperately. I was afraid. I didn't think you'd see me, not without all the baggage of my name. Her voice broke. I saw you, Ryan. I saw you when you were just a clumsy waiter trying not to drop forks. I saw you when you listened, when you cared, and you ruined it. You ruined us. She slammed the door, leaving him in the cold hallway, his chest hollow. Days blurred into weeks. Emily searched for work, but doors slammed shut everywhere she went. Managers glanced at her resume, then at the headlines on their phones, and shook their heads. The whispers followed her, the billionaire's fling. Daniel tried to comfort her, but he, too, was pulled into the fallout. Friends at school teased him, snide comments about his sister chasing money. He stopped mentioning college altogether, ashamed of the burden. Bills piled up, the weight pressed down harder each day, suffocating her. At night, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. She had worked so hard to stay invisible, to survive. Now the entire city saw her, and not for who she really was, but for a lie she never asked to be part of. Meanwhile, Ryan spiraled. His board was furious at the scandal, his image in tatters, but none of it mattered compared to losing Emily. He attended meeting after meeting, but his mind replayed the look on her face when she realized who he was. Hurt, betrayal, devastation. Victoria, of course, capitalized on it. She made public statements dripping with false sympathy. It's tragic, really. That poor girl must have thought she mattered to him. But Ryan belongs in our world, not hers. The gossip press ate it up. The divide between Ryan's life and Emily's had never felt more impossible to cross. One night, Emily walked home in the bitter cold after another failed job interview. She passed a store window, catching a reflection. Her shoulders hunched, her eyes tired, her clothes worn thin. She barely recognized herself. Inside her bag was her old sketchbook. She had carried it with her, hoping for a chance to show someone her designs. But no one wanted to see. No one wanted to believe in her. She ducked into an empty alley, sinking to the ground against a brick wall. Pulling out the sketchbook, she flipped through the pages, rooms filled with light, colors dancing across the walls, spaces that felt alive, dreams she once believed in. Tears blurred the lines. Stupid, she whispered, so stupid. For the first time in years, she let herself cry. Not the quiet, controlled tears she shed in silence, but sobs that shook her chest and echoed off the walls. Everything, her job, her reputation, her future, had collapsed, and the man she thought she could trust had been the one to set it all in motion. She felt utterly alone. Across the city, Ryan stood on his balcony, the skyline glittering beneath him. He had built everything: empires, fortune, power. Yet for the first time he realized he was powerless, because the one thing he wanted most, the one person who had ever made him feel real, no longer wanted him. And all the money in the world couldn't buy her trust back. When enemies strike, they don't just aim for your pride, they go after your soul. And sometimes the cruelest lies sound just enough like truth to destroy you. Emily Carter thought she had already lost everything. Her job at Orlea, her reputation, the fragile trust she had placed in Ryan, all gone. Each morning she woke to headlines that refused to die. Each night she fell asleep with the weight of shame pressing her down. She told herself it couldn't get worse. She was wrong. One cold afternoon, Daniel rushed into their small apartment, his face pale. "Emily," he gasped, holding up his phone, "you need to see this." Her stomach dropped. What now? On the screen was a photo, grainy, snapped from a distance, but clear enough to recognize her. Emily, sitting at the boutique where Victoria had dragged her days earlier, wearing the shimmering blue gown. The caption beneath screamed, "Waitress cashes in, secret lovers shopping spree exposed." Emily's breath caught. No, that's not. Daniel scrolled down. More photos followed. Emily leaving the store with the garment bag. Victoria had insisted she carry it. Emily standing outside with her phone, waiting for the subway. Out of context, it looked damning, like she had been showered with gifts. The article twisted every detail. Ryan Donovan spoils his latest fling with designer clothes while she plays the victim. Classic gold digger move. Emily's knees buckled. She sank onto the couch, the world spinning. "This isn't real. I didn't take anything. I did." Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. "I know, but the world doesn't." By evening, the photos had gone viral. Social media exploded with ridicule. She played the poor waitress act so well. Knew she was after his money from the start. Disgusting. Emily turned her phone face down, unable to read more. Her chest felt hollow, her dreams shredded beyond recognition. At his penthouse, Ryan slammed his fist onto the counter when he saw the same article. His assistant hovered nervously. "Should we issue a statement?" the assistant asked. Ryan's voice was low, furious. "This is Victoria, I know it." "She's already on the press circuit," the assistant said quietly. "She gave an interview this afternoon. She claimed she saw Emily bragging about Ryan's gifts, that she was flaunting them." Ryan's hands trembled with rage. Victoria had always been ruthless, but this was calculated cruelty. Emily didn't deserve this, not after everything. Meanwhile, Emily tried to keep moving forward. She applied for jobs, one after another. Each time she was turned away. "Sorry," one cafe manager said awkwardly. "We've seen your name in the news. We can't take that kind of risk." It was the same everywhere. The world had made up its mind. She was a liar, a schemer, a parasite. One night she sat at the kitchen table with Daniel, bills spread out in front of her. She rubbed her temples, fighting back tears. "Maybe I should drop out," Daniel said quietly. "Save the tuition money." Emily's head snapped up. "No, absolutely not. You worked too hard to get there. You're staying in school." "But you can't carry this forever," he whispered. "It's killing you." She forced a smile even as her chest ached. "I'll find a way. I always do." But deep down, for the first time, she wasn't sure. At Orlea, the staff whispered about her. Emily heard through Maggie that some believed the photos, that she had been playing innocent while reaping the benefits. Even Maggie, her loyal friend, admitted, "I don't believe it, Em, but people talk. They'll say anything." Emily nodded numbly. She was too tired to fight rumors anymore. One night, as snow fell in heavy sheets outside, Emily walked alone down Broadway, clutching her coat tight. Neon signs flickered overhead, casting cold colors on the icy pavement. She passed a storefront with a TV in the window. On the screen was Victoria Hale, giving yet another interview, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "He's always been so generous. It's sad when people take advantage of that kindness." The host nodded solemnly, buying every word. Emily's fists clenched. Her reflection in the glass looked small, fragile, broken. Victoria had turned the world against her with a smile and a lie, and Emily had no weapon to fight back. She kept walking, but her steps felt heavier than ever. Ryan, however, wasn't giving up. He called reporters, threatened lawsuits, demanded retractions. But Victoria was powerful, her family's influence stretching deep into media and politics. Every move he made was countered. Every truth he tried to expose was drowned out by her web of lies. Finally, he stood alone on his balcony, staring at the city lights. His phone buzzed with a message from Emily. He grabbed it, hope flaring. But the message wasn't what he wanted. "Stop trying to fix this. Stop calling. I can't do this anymore." Ryan's chest caved. He sank into a chair, the weight of defeat pressing him down. For the first time, he wondered if Victoria had won. Emily, meanwhile, curled up on her bed with her sketchbook clutched to her chest. The pages that once represented hope now felt like cruel reminders of a life she would never have. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. The world believed she was a thief, a liar, a fraud, and she was powerless to prove otherwise. The enemies had struck, and for Emily Carter it felt like the final blow. Sometimes salvation doesn't come from the powerful. Sometimes it comes from the quiet voices no one bothered to hear, until the truth refuses to stay hidden. Emily Carter sat in the dim light of her apartment, sketchbook open but untouched on her lap. The city outside bustled with life, but inside everything felt muted gray. Daniel sat across the table, trying to study, though his eyes kept darting to his sister. He hated seeing her like this, broken, silent, almost erased. Then came the knock at the door. Emily frowned. They weren't expecting anyone. When she opened it, Maggie Lopez stood there, bundled in her coat, snowflakes clinging to her hair. Emily blinked in surprise. "Maggie, what are you doing here?" Maggie stepped inside quickly, her eyes wide with urgency. "I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Emily, you need to hear this." Maggie pulled out her phone and set it on the table. She hesitated for a moment, then pressed play on a voice recording. The tinny sound of laughter filled the room, high, sharp, unmistakably Victoria Hale. "And she actually believed me," Victoria's voice sneered. "I had her try on that gown just so I could get the perfect photo, the look on her face, pathetic. Once those pictures leaked, no one would ever take her seriously again." Emily's heart stopped. She leaned forward, her hands trembling. Maggie pressed play again, her own voice faint in the background of the recording. "But what if someone finds out the truth?" Victoria laughed coldly. "They won't. That girl's already ruined. And Donovan, he'll come crawling back to me once he realizes she was nothing more than a distraction." The recording ended. Emily sat frozen, her chest heaving. Proof that she hadn't imagined it, proof that she wasn't the liar the world believed. "Maggie, how did you?" Maggie bit her lip. "She cornered me in the break room the other night, started bragging like she always does, thinking I'd be too scared to say anything. I recorded it. I've been sitting on it for days, afraid of what she'd do to me if she found out. But I can't watch her destroy you anymore." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she reached for her friend's hand. "You don't know what this means." "I think I do," Maggie said firmly. "This could clear your name, but we need to be smart about it." The next day, Emily and Maggie went to see Chef George at his small apartment above a bakery in Brooklyn. The old man welcomed them in, his wise eyes narrowing as Emily played the recording for him. When it ended, he leaned back, exhaling slowly. That woman always reeked of poison, finally proof. But what do we do? Emily asked, desperation in her voice. Even if we put this online, who's going to believe me? She's Victoria Hale. She controls the press. George stroked his beard. Maybe she controls the press, but she doesn't control the people, and she doesn't control Donovan. Emily stiffened. No, I can't go back to him. George raised a hand gently. I'm not saying forgive him. I'm saying he has reach, and right now, if you want to fight her, you need allies. Whether you like it or not, he's the only one with enough firepower to take her down. Emily's jaw tightened. The thought of seeing Ryan again twisted her stomach, but George was right. Alone, she was powerless. With proof and the right voice behind it, she had a chance. That night, Ryan sat in his penthouse, drowning in silence. His empire was intact, but his world was empty. Emily's last message haunted him. Stop trying to fix this. Stop calling. I can't do this anymore. He was still staring at the city lights when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Ryan Donovan, a familiar voice whispered, Maggie. Within an hour, Ryan sat across from Emily in George's kitchen. The tension was suffocating. She wouldn't look at him, her arms crossed tightly. He wanted to speak, to apologize again, but George cleared his throat and pressed play on the recording. Victoria's voice filled the room, dripping with cruelty. The words cut like knives, but this time Ryan's face hardened with rage. She set you up, he said, his voice low, shaking with fury. All of it. Emily, I swear to you I didn't know, but now I can end this. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but not from relief. I don't want to be your project to fix, Ryan. I don't want to be your redemption story. He leaned forward, his gaze fierce. You're not. You never were, but you deserve justice, and I won't let her take another thing from you. For the first time since the nightmare began, Emily felt a flicker of hope. It was small, fragile, but real. She looked at Maggie, then at George. Their eyes told her the same thing. She wasn't alone anymore. Fine, she whispered. Let's do it. Let's bring her down. 2 days later, the recording hit the internet. Leaked anonymously, it spread like wildfire. Blogs picked it up first, then mainstream outlets. The audio was undeniable. Victoria Hale mocking Emily, bragging about manipulating the photos, admitting her cruelty. The tide began to shift. Hashtags changed from ridicule to outrage. Justice for Emily trended as people demanded accountability. Even those who had mocked her now condemned Victoria's arrogance. For the first time, Emily's name wasn't paired with shame. It was paired with sympathy. Victoria, blindsided, scrambled to control the damage. Her lawyers threatened lawsuits. Her PR team spun desperate statements. But the recording was too clear, too damning. The mask she wore so proudly was cracking. And Emily Carter, the waitress they had all dismissed, finally had a voice. Some wars aren't fought in shadows. They're fought under blinding lights, where the truth cuts sharper than any blade. The recording had already set fire to the city's gossip mill. Within days, Victoria Hale's smug empire of whispers began to collapse, but it wasn't enough, not yet. She was too powerful, her reach too wide. If Emily was to reclaim her dignity, if the world was to see the truth for what it was, there had to be a reckoning. Ryan Donovan knew it, and for once, so did Emily. The opportunity came when Orla hosted a press-heavy charity banquet. The restaurant had been booked long before the scandal, but now it was the perfect stage. Cameras, reporters, society's elite, all under one roof. A stage Victoria couldn't resist. Emily was terrified. Just stepping into the building sent shivers down her spine, memories of humiliation flooding back. But Maggie squeezed her hand as they slipped inside through the service entrance. You're not alone this time, Maggie whispered. Emily nodded, drawing strength she didn't know she still had. Meanwhile, Ryan stood near the stage in a tailored suit, no longer hiding. His mask as a waiter was gone. Tonight he was stepping forward as who he truly was, not for the world but for her. The banquet glittered with chandeliers and champagne flutes. Guests mingled, reporters jostled for interviews, and the doors opened. Victoria Hale swept in like a queen returning to her throne. She wore silver tonight, diamonds dripping from her neck, her smile polished to perfection. The cameras loved her. She paused, posed, and played her role. But Ryan was waiting. When the speeches began, he took the stage. The room hushed. Every eye turned toward him. Emily stood at the back, her heart pounding. "Good evening," Ryan began, his voice steady but hard. "Most of you know me. You know the headlines, you know the lies, but tonight I want you to hear the truth." A ripple moved through the room. Victoria's smile faltered just for a second. Ryan gestured toward the screen behind him. "A woman I care about was dragged through the mud, branded a liar, a thief, a fraud, but she was none of those things. She was a victim of manipulation." The audio clip played. Victoria's voice filled the banquet hall, mocking Emily, bragging about her scheme. Gasps erupted, phones lifted, recording everything. Murmurs turned into outrage. Victoria surged to her feet, her face pale. "This is slander," she snapped, "edited fake." Ryan's voice cut through her protest. "Funny, because Maggie Lopez, one of Orelai's own, recorded it, and she's here tonight." Maggie stepped forward, chin high despite her trembling hands. "I heard it with my own ears." She set Emily up. "Every word of it is true." The crowd erupted again, a storm of whispers and condemnation. Cameras zoomed in on Victoria, her mask crumbling in real time. But Emily wasn't finished hiding. She stepped onto the stage beside Ryan, her heart hammering so loud she thought the microphones might pick it up. For a moment she froze, blinded by the lights, paralyzed by the memory of every cruel headline. Then she found her voice. "My name is Emily Carter," she said, her voice steady. "I never asked to be part of Ryan Donovan's world. I never wanted his money or his name. All I wanted was to work hard, take care of my brother, and live with dignity. That was taken from me, not by the truth, but by lies." The silence in the room was absolute. Reporters leaned forward, hungry for every word. Emily lifted her chin. "I was humiliated. I was fired. I was ridiculed by strangers who never knew me. And why? Because one woman decided she could destroy me for sport." Her gaze locked on Victoria, but the truth doesn't stay buried, not forever. Victoria's mask shattered completely. She lashed out, her voice sharp. "Do you really think anyone cares about a nobody waitress? You're nothing. You'll always be nothing." Emily flinched, but Ryan stepped forward, his presence like a shield. "Wrong," he said coldly. "She's more than you'll ever be, because unlike you, Emily never needed power or money to matter. She mattered from the start." The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed like lightning, capturing every second. Victoria stumbled back, her face pale, her empire of lies collapsing under the weight of truth. By the end of the night, the story had changed. Headlines spread before dawn. "Waitress exonerated. Recording exposes heiress's cruel plot." Public opinion turned swiftly. Where Emily had been mocked, now she was defended. Where Victoria had been adored, now she was condemned. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt something she thought she'd lost forever: dignity. After the banquet outside in the quiet snow, Emily stood alone for a moment, breathing in the cold air. Ryan approached carefully, keeping his distance. "You didn't have to speak," he said softly, "but you did. You were incredible." She turned to him, her eyes searching his. "You fought for me tonight. Why?" "Because you deserve it," he said simply. "Because you were right. I should have told you the truth from the start. I was afraid you'd only see the billionaire. But you saw me, Emily. You always did. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that." Her chest ached with conflicting feelings: pain, anger, hope. She wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. But for the first time, she believed maybe the story wasn't over. Healing isn't about erasing scars. It's about choosing to live with them, to let them remind you of what you survived, and who stood by you when the world turned away. Weeks passed after the banquet. The storm of media coverage slowly shifted. Where Emily's name once trended with insults, now it was paired with praise. Courageous waitress stands up to heiress. The recording had gutted Victoria's reputation. Her family scrambled to contain the fallout, retreating from the spotlight. For the first time in years, Victoria Hale had no power left. But Emily's life didn't return to what it was. It couldn't. She still walked through the city with wary eyes, flinched at whispers in the street. Strangers stopped her sometimes, thanking her for speaking out. Others still judged, unable to let go of old narratives. Healing was messy, slow. She worked part-time at a small cafe in Queens, grateful for the kindness of the owner who had offered her a chance. The pay was modest, but it was honest. She poured coffee, wiped tables, and in the quiet hours she sketched. Not because she thought her designs would ever see the light of day, but because it reminded her she still had dreams, even if they had been bruised. Daniel, meanwhile, kept studying, guilt written on his face every time he looked at her. One night, as they ate box pasta at the kitchen table, he said softly, "I could transfer somewhere cheaper, it would help." Emily shook her head firmly. "You're not giving up your future because of me. That's not how this story ends." Her voice wavered, but her resolve didn't. She had carried him this far. She wasn't going to let him fall now. Ryan Donovan stayed away at first. He knew Emily needed space, but he never stopped watching from a distance, making sure she and Daniel had what they needed without her realizing. Anonymous donations paid off her overdue rent. A mysterious scholarship covered Daniel's next semester. Emily suspected, but she didn't ask. Pride was a fragile thing, and she wasn't ready to see him. Then one evening, as snow dusted the sidewalks, Ryan showed up at the cafe. He didn't arrive in a sleek car or with an entourage, just a man in a plain coat, holding his breath as he pushed the door open. Emily was wiping a table when she saw him. Her chest tightened, memories flooding back. She considered walking into the back and pretending she hadn't noticed, but something in his eyes, tired, vulnerable, unguarded, stopped her. "Hi," he said quietly. She exhaled slowly, "Hi." For a moment silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unspoken. "I wanted to give you this," Ryan said finally. Placing a worn leather folder on the counter. "It's not a gift, it's an opportunity. Do whatever you want with it or throw it away, but it's yours." Emily hesitated, then opened it. Inside were design proposals, her sketches, cleaned up, polished, rendered professionally, and at the back a contract. A grant for a community project, the Carter Design Initiative. Her breath caught. "How did you?" "I found your sketches," he admitted softly. "Maggie showed me. They're brilliant, Emily. The world deserves to see them. This grant would let you start libraries, community centers, spaces that matter, spaces you dreamed of." Emily's throat tightened. "And if I take this, what does it mean? That I owe you, that we're—" Ryan shook his head. "No, you don't owe me anything. This isn't about us. This is about you, about giving back what the world tried to take. If you never speak to me again after tonight, I'll accept it. But I couldn't stand by and let your dreams die." Tears stung her eyes. For once he wasn't the billionaire, the mogul, the man who lied. He was just Ryan, standing there, willing to give without asking for anything in return. Weeks turned into months. Emily launched her first small project, a neighborhood reading room in Queens. Bright walls, shelves full of donated books, warm lights that invited children and weary parents alike. She poured herself into the work, and for the first time in years, she felt alive. Ryan came sometimes, standing in the back, watching her with quiet pride. He never pushed, never demanded. He simply showed up, ready if she needed him. It wasn't immediate. Healing never is. Emily's anger didn't vanish overnight, and Ryan's guilt didn't dissolve with one good deed. But brick by brick, trust began to rebuild, not through grand gestures, but through patience, presence, and honesty. One late evening, Emily locked up the reading room, her breath fogging in the winter air. Ryan was waiting outside, hands shoved in his coat pockets. She shook her head, half amused. "You really don't give up, do you?" He smiled faintly, not when it matters. They walked together down the quiet street, snow crunching underfoot. Finally, Emily stopped, turning to face him. "You hurt me," she said plainly. "You lied, and it nearly destroyed me." Ryan swallowed hard. "I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." She studied him, the man who had been both her betrayer and her defender. Then she whispered, "But you also fought for me. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever myself." Her hand slipped into his, warmth spread between them, fragile but real. "I'm not promising forever," she said softly, "but I'm willing to see where this goes. No masks, no lies." Ryan's eyes glistened. No masks ever again. The city stretched before them, glittering and alive. For Emily Carter, life would never be simple. Scars remained, whispers lingered, challenges lay ahead. But for the first time in a long time, she felt ready. Because healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about choosing the future. And as she walked hand in hand with Ryan Donovan into the night, she knew she wasn't walking alone anymore.